do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this...
When Karoline Leavitt appeared on The View, she took aim at Whoopi Goldberg and the panel for their contempt for conservative opinions, and her performance was nothing short of spectacular. Leavitt was obviously not there to merely nod in agreement, or let herself be talked over as soon as she sat down. Rather, she arrived ready to address the program's long-standing history of excluding and disparaging viewpoints that differ from its largely liberal outlook. Young but seasoned political strategist Leavitt, who was press secretary for the Trump campaign, criticized the panel's condescending tone right away, pointing out that they often disregard or ridicule conservative opinions instead of having substantive conversations. Leavitt started off by speaking directly to Whoopi Goldberg, pointing out that her contemptuous treatment of conservative visitors and viewpoints was not only counterproductive but also alienating to a sizable segment of the American audience.
Mainstream media saying that there's no transparency. I mean, before it was Elon Musk and President Trump doing this and being highly scrutinized for it, it was just unnamed bureaucrats in the city that nobody knew just writing checks. And finally, we're actually looking at the books, and what they are revealing is truly appalling, but I guess not surprising when you look at the way that Washington has been run for decades. Again, the American people voted for this monumental change, and that's exactly what.
She maintained that although the viewpoint frequently presents itself as a forum for a range of viewpoints, it constantly falls short of extending that inclusion to people who have conservative viewpoints. Leavitt stressed that this disrespect was not limited to political differences, but rather reflected a larger societal problem in which conservative women in particular are frequently mocked or disregarded for their convictions, rather than given due consideration. Known for her strong personality and direct approach, Whoopi first tried to use sarcasm and contemptuous comments to sidestep Leavitt's concerns. But instead of giving up, Leavitt stood her own and insisted that her voice be heard. She noted that the panel's actions were representative of a wider issue in entertainment and the media, where conservative women are frequently the targets of more critical criticism and personal assaults than their liberal counterparts.
What was interesting to me is Dan Rather weighed in on X, and he said, he compared our time now to the Nixon era, which was a little scary for me. But he said, enough with both sides-ism. When one side lies intentionally and repeatedly, they are no longer entitled to the benefit of the doubt.
And we should keep in mind, too, that the people that need to hear this are the people who are running the networks that are okaying this. Because this idea, it's like they say to you now, you can only work within this perimeter. But if the facts don't If the facts are not clear to people, that was what a journalist was there to do, to say, in fact, this is what went on and this is how we checked. Now, we've been given doubts that people don't know how to do this. The media has pretty much always been.
Her points were strengthened by Leavitt's composed yet strong manner, which contrasted sharply with the panel's increasingly confrontational tone. There was a noticeable tension in the room as Leavitt persisted in her argument, asking Whoopi and the other co-hosts to examine their own prejudices and how their actions fuel the polarization of American politics. By the end of the episode, it was evident that Leavitt had not only maintained her position, but also revealed the prejudice and discriminatory practices that have long afflicted the viewpoint.
Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was.
Her arrival was a watershed moment that made the show and its viewers face hard realities regarding the treatment of conservative voices in the media. An increasing cultural gap between the media elite and regular Americans was brought to light by Karoline Leavitt's criticism of the View panel for being disconnected from the majority of American voters, especially on the subject of wokeness. Leavitt contended that a sizable section of the populace, especially those who believe that wokeness has gone too far, has been estranged from the panel due to its unrelenting advocacy of progressive ideas and contempt for divergent opinions. She noted that although the co-hosts frequently present their viewpoints as morally superior, their language and policies frequently fall short of speaking to the real-world worries of working-class Americans who are more concerned with problems like crime, inflation, and education than with the newest cultural discussions. Leavitt stressed that the gap between the viewpoint and its audience is a result of a basic inability to comprehend the goals and values of the American heartland, rather than merely having different points of view. She supported her argument, with polling and election statistics pointing out that many of the panel's policies and ideas, like cancel culture, gender ideology in schools, and defunding the police, are wildly unpopular with the majority of voters.
Some receipts today, like they didn't believe these things existed. If you show these people in the press room, this is $2.5 million for cow flatulence reduction. Do any of these reporters make a case for $2.5 million for cow flatulence reduction in Brazil?
Well, they tried to make the case yesterday for $50 million in condoms to Gaza, saying that they actually went to another country, as if that's any better. The point is we are discovering this egregious misuse of American taxpayer funds. And yes, Jesse, we have the receipts, and I will continue to pull them at every briefing if they continue to ask, and we will provide that information. We have nothing to hide. Again, President Trump is exposing what the American people want.
Despite their lack of broad support, Leavitt contended that the panel's insistence on advancing these agendas shows how disconnected they are from the realities that many Americans face. In an effort to refute Leavitt's assertions, the co-hosts, Joy Behar and Sunny Houston in particular, argued that wokeness is merely a question of equality and social justice. Leavitt retorted, however, by characterizing wokeness as a political tool intended to stifle disagreement and impose conformity, rather than as a sincere quest for justice. She charged that the panel was marginalizing people who didn't share their perspective and stifling serious debate by utilizing the rhetoric of tolerance and diversity.
Divisive and disgusting speech that any president, certainly in my lifetime, has ever given. He essentially waged war on half of the country by saying that we are all a threat to democracy because we believe in putting America first. It's not radical to want to put your country and your own people first. It's not radical to want to have a strong border, a strong military, and to unleash the might of your own economy, not economies around the world. You know, we have seen cultural Marxism trickling its way through every institution in this country. The public school system, the higher education university system, Hollywood, big tech, the corrupt mainstream media that I fought against in President Trump's White House are indoctrinating my generation of Americans into hating our country, hating one another based on race and gender and sex and all of this other BS, quite frankly.
Leavitt cited several instances from the program where conservative speakers or viewpoints were ridiculed or flatly rejected as proof of this pattern. According to Leavitt, the criticism struck a chord with a lot of viewers who believe that The View and other mainstream media have turned into echo chambers for progressive elites rather than forums for a range of viewpoints. In addition to casting doubt on the show's legitimacy, Leavitt's criticism of the panel's disinterest in the issues facing regular Americans spurred a larger discussion about how the media shapes public opinion. Her audacious move highlighted the growing dissatisfaction of both conservatives and moderates with the media's alleged bias and inability to adequately portray the range of American perspectives. When the panel, especially Joy Behar, turned to personal attacks instead of listening to Karoline Leavitt's points, the tension between Leavitt and the other co-hosts of The View reached a breaking point.
Oh, okay, and why are the meltdowns always in cars? Now to the cackling witch herself, Joy Behar from The View, whose jealousy is something to behold. Here is her assessment of Trump's new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The ever-empowering feminist, Joy herself, everyone. And this is why, of course, she's on The View and not working for the most powerful man in the world, because Karoline would wipe the floor with you bitter banshees any day.
Leavitt quietly expressed her opinion about the show's contempt for some points of view. Many viewers viewed Behar's interruption as a low blow and a diversion from the important topic at issue when he made a crude remark on Leavitt's appearance. Behar's comment, which appeared to be meant to cast doubt on Leavitt's reliability, had the opposite effect and brought attention to the panel's propensity to use personal attacks when pressed. Unfazed by the insult, Leavitt swiftly responded with a scathing rejoinder, denouncing the co-hosts for their hypocrisy. She said that although The View frequently presents itself as an advocate for inclusivity and women's empowerment, its handling of women with different viewpoints frequently falls well short of those aspirations. In her controlled but stern answer, Leavitt emphasized that personal assaults are inappropriate in a constructive discussion and that the panel's actions only serve to confirm her prior criticism of the show's patronizing and dismissive tone. The argument escalated when the other co-hosts joined in to support Behar, intensifying the already heated conversation. Many viewers who were fed up with the show's frequently toxic dynamic respected her because of her ability to remain composed and articulate under duress, which contrasted sharply with the panel's increasingly aggressive behavior.
A woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the groupthink is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see what it is. It was also interesting, too, because she was conflating.
Karoline Leavitt's appearance on The View was a powerful moment that not only strengthened her case, but also shed light on the panel's troubling tendency to dismiss opinions that differed from their own. Despite their trained backgrounds, the panel's increasingly hostile tone was starkly contrasted by Leavitt's composed and expert defense of her views. Many viewers found her refusal to be intimidated or marginalized refreshing, especially within the show's usual dynamics. Leavitt's critique went beyond her own defense. It called into question the broader ethos of the panel, which often prioritizes dismissiveness and personal attacks over constructive dialogue. Her performance served as a poignant reminder that professionalism and substantive content should always supersede bias and sensationalism in media discourse. One of Karoline Leavitt's most memorable moments occurred when she directly confronted Whoopi Goldberg about the show's inconsistency in supporting women's empowerment. Leavitt pointed out the contradiction in a program that claims to uplift. women while simultaneously disparaging those with differing opinions. She highlighted how The View tends to celebrate women who break stereotypes while condescendingly treating conservative or independent-minded women. Leavitt's criticism struck a chord because she provided specific examples where the panel had mocked or ignored women who didn't conform to their ideological mold. Beyond silencing diverse viewpoints, she argued that such behavior perpetuates a harmful narrative that only certain types of women deserve respect and support. Initially defensive, Whoopi Goldberg tried to deflect the criticism by arguing about the panel's intentions. However, Leavitt firmly maintained that the impact of their dismissive and sometimes derisive attitudes towards women with dissenting views carries serious consequences for both the individuals involved and the broader cultural discourse on gender equality. The audience's reaction was mixed. While some seemed uncomfortable, many applauded Leavitt for her courage in addressing an issue often overlooked. The incident quickly sparked discussions on social media, with numerous people commending Leavitt for raising important questions about inclusivity and genuine empowerment in media representation. Leavitt's ability to navigate such challenging conversations with poise and conviction not only solidified her as a compelling voice, but also ignited a broader dialogue on what true empowerment and diversity should entail in the media landscape and beyond.